Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be doing a mock draft with trades. This is my first mock draft with trades basically all year. I haven't done a mock draft in a month. I've learned a ton of new prospects, have more information. The offseason started, the trade rumors are happening. So most importantly, let's get right into this video. Start off, of course, with the Bears. I've always said that they are in position to trade this pick, and I don't know if the Bears will sell for like one, or they'll try to get 2 first-round picks. But I think that the Colts are in a prime position to trade up, of course. No quarterback, needing of one, and so I won't even have to force this trade. So the Bears are getting a 4th, 2 first-round picks, one at 35, and then they're also getting a 3rd-round pick. I think that's decent compensation for, this is more of a weak draft class, but I think the Colts, of course, looking for their franchise quarterback, definitely want to go with, they want to trade up. They want to get one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft, either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, and personally, I do think that Bryce Young's a better quarterback, just under pressure. He might be the smallest quarterback we've ever seen, but he also has probably the best poise, some of the best accuracy, and he had not as much help at Alabama this year, and he still thrived, still played very well. Had a lot of close losses, probably should have been in the playoffs, but, I like C.J. Stroud a lot. Moving on to number 2, Houston Texans. They don't need to trade out of this pick. They can go ahead and get C.J. Stroud. They're taking one of the best 2 quarterbacks as well in the same situation as the Colts. C.J. Stroud goes into, a tumultuous situation in Houston, but hopefully he'll be able to thrive there. With Arizona on the clock, I'm going to be taking my number 1 player in the 2023 NFL Draft, definitely Jalen Carter. Sneak peek, I'm going to have a video on him, player breakdown. That'll be my first of the year. Stay tuned for that. And then in Seattle, of course, wanted to draft, or not Seattle, sorry, Chicago. Chicago wanting to draft a dominant edge rusher who's had 2 years of very good production at a top-end school, Alabama, are definitely going to be happy with this pick. Chicago has had the least amount of pressure and sacks from their front 4 last year. They were 32nd in pressures created. Traded away Robert Quinn. Roquan Smith, their defensive anchor, is gone. So what do? You start off with an edge rusher that a lot of people think is the next Von Miller or profiles as him. That's a beautiful pick there. And then for Seattle, I think they should take the 2nd best edge rusher in the class. For me, it's Tyree Wilson. Tyree Wilson, a 6'5", 275 edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Very good, extremely lengthy, and has a lot of power. Fit well in Seattle scheme as well. And then you have the Detroit Lions, who were 9-8 last year, very successful. Good to go with Devin Witherspoon. Now, some could argue Christian Gonzalez is a better cornerback, but I think that Devin Witherspoon fits the scheme a lot better for the Detroit Lions. Now, Christian Gonzalez is a good man cornerback, but Devin Witherspoon is easily the best man cornerback in this draft class, and the Detroit Lions ran a primary man scheme last year. I think they were 5th in the league in man coverage, snap percentage. Moving on to the Raiders, I don't love the quarterback options here. I think that they should probably try to sign one and then draft one, but their window is kind of the now. I know they're making a hard push for Aaron Rodgers, of course, with the Devontae Adams thing, or Devontae Adams connection with Aaron Rodgers. But I read an article about they are not willing to pursue him and give up their entire assets. They'd have to give up this first-round pick, the 7th pick, and next year's. So, I'm not the biggest fan of Will Levis. I think I've talked about this enough. Not great college production. Had a transfer from Penn State. Was beat out by Sean Clifford. Doesn't have a lot of the or he didn't have a lot of the numbers that a lot of people are looking for. Completion percentage was good, around 65%. 19 touchdowns, though. Also had 35 sacks, which led the FBS. He was sacked a ton, basically. And behind that Raiders O-line, who knows what he's going to do. But hey, he's coming in immediately with Devonta Adams and Josh Jacobs and Hunter Renfrow. He's coming in with a good supporting cast, so maybe he'll do good. I think he fits better than what Anthony Richardson would do. And I don't think Devonta Adams, would love getting overthrown or just completely missed a bunch. So, moving on. The Atlanta Falcons are very interested. Where are the... So, the Atlanta Falcons, I've read a lot, are extremely interested in Lamar Jackson and are willing to give up the necessary needs to get Lamar Jackson. And so, with that being said, I think that if they give him $50 million guaranteed per over like 6 years, maybe like a 6-year, $300 million contract, and then, they also have to give up 3 first-round picks. But the Atlanta Falcons 100% could do it. They have the cap space for it. They have the assets for it. They have a top 10 pick this year, and they have 2 first-round picks that they can easily use. They have weapons. They have Drake London, who they picked in the first round, 8th overall last year, who is an ex-body receiver, 6'5", 220. And then you also have a franchise tight end in Kyle Pitts, who was underused last year. I'll move this. So yeah, I think that they have a very good case to be made for Lamar Jackson, and that's what I'm gonna make. That's how I'm gonna address that trade. And so, what do the Baltimore Ravens do? Oh well, they just pick the next best running quarterback potentially in the league. So if we look at Baltimore's fit with Anthony Richardson, it's a 1-to-1. The scheme has already been tailored to Lamar Jackson. So what do you have to do? You can just run QB power. Let's just run QB power all day. And Anthony Richardson also gets a safety net with Mark Andrews. And then, you get him some wide receivers. Or you can let him sit the first year. You can get some veteran quarterback. And I think Andrew Richardson, you put that in the baby maker, or you put him in your back pocket. You release him next year. Ooh, that could just be another Lamar Jackson. You could have just got 2 extra first round picks and then a player who got similar production. So I think it's a win-win for both sides, in my opinion, with the Atlanta Falcons and the Baltimore Ravens trading that pick with the Carolina Panthers. Now, with the 4 best quarterbacks off the board, and, I wouldn't want them to really take offensive, not offensive. I don't think, they're going to go reach for Tanner McKee or Hendon Hooker at 9 overall. That would be just insane. But what else do they need? Well, as you see, they could use edge rusher. They could also use linebacker. I love Frankie Lavu, but they could use a second guy there. They could also use some wide receiver help. They have DJ Moore. They could get some secondary help to get somebody right next to J.C. Horn. But I'm more leaning towards edge rusher. I'm more leaning towards edge rusher here. I want somebody next to Brian Burns for the long term. And then I look at, who's available. You got Luke Van Ness or Miles Murphy. Miles Murphy is somebody with extremely good length, but, also not phenomenal college production. And then you got Luke Van Ness, who had 9 sacks last year. Better production, but he just doesn't have possibly the length or potential that he has. But I think Luke Van Ness, safer pick. And I don't think Carolina would be mad at all. Also meets one of their needs. And then you have the Eagles at 10. This is likely the best secondary pick. James Bradbury, maybe he'll resign. We'll have to see there. They're also losing a lot of key defensive pieces, but I think that they could get a lower edge rusher here. So it kind of comes down to 2 positions. It's either edge rusher or cornerback, and personally, I like cornerback far more in this position. I'm going to go with Christian Gonzalez here. Good in man coverage, and he's also good in zone coverage. Now, compared to a guy like Devin Witherspoon, I think Witherspoon succeeds more. I think he's better at what he is good at, but Christian Gonzalez is just another physical, big body cornerback. Just 6'2", measured in at 6 foot at the at his I think he went to the Senior Bowl. Weighed at 200 compared to Witherspoon's slider frame. Christian Gonzalez just a little bigger. But I think it's a very good pick by New Orleans, getting a very good cornerback in the top 10. Moving on to Tennessee, they're probably going to pick their best offensive tackle available. They just cut Taylor Lewan, and they still have Derrick Henry. He needs somebody to run behind, and a strong left tackle will definitely do that. Paris Johnson, my highest rated offensive tackle in this class. You could flip him with Skronsky if you wanted to, but very good pick there. And then with the Houston Texans, what did we do earlier? We picked a quarterback. And what is the most important position next to a quarterback? And that's receiver. And for me, I think that Jordan Addison would fit the best with C.J. Stroud. Stroud likes guys who get open, and he targeted JSN, Garrett Wilson a ton. He targeted Jackson Smith-Njigba and Garrett Wilson a ton. Obviously, he had Marvin Harrison, but I don't think Quentin Johnson is at that level. Even though he is a big body X receiver type where you could just throw it up to, but for the Texans and for especially C.J. Stroud, Jordan Addison is somebody who can just get open. Yes, he does have a slider frame, of course, at 175 pounds, but slider frame receivers are going earlier and earlier, and some of the most important traits in the NFL, especially for a receiver, is getting open and being a very good route runner, and Jordan Addison is one of those guys, especially in this class. And now the Jets are on the clock, and with the Jets, they are heavily going to... I think they're going to be in the Aaron... I think they're number 1 or number 2 in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. They need a quarterback. That's the most important position in football, and that has been the position that they have struggled at the most. Of course, they have a championship caliber defense, was ranked number 4 last year. They have franchise pieces on offense with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, and they're also just a good situation. They were 7-4 before the bye, and then of course went 0-6 to end the season, which really sucked. But looking at their Green Bay Packers, so with Jordan Love at quarterback, what do you want to do? You want to give him as much help as possible. Going to give him Quentin Johnson. I think they already have enough of those speed guys with Romeo Doubs, Christian Watkins. Quentin Johnson will be his X, and then you got Romeo Doubs in the slot. That'll be a good wide receiver set for his first year. Moving on to the Patriots, I think their biggest need right now, where is offensive tackle? I think his offensive tackle for them, Trent Brown, just was not playing at the level that a lot of people, or that, he's getting older, 31, and they don't have another tackle kind of outside him. I'm going to go with Peter Skronsky at 14. Green Bay Packers back on the clock. Now, I love Brian Branch for this team. Green Bay gets a defensive anchor with Brian Branch. Of course, PFF's highest graded safety. And, 6 foot, 190. Very, very good overall player. He's like, I don't want to jump the gun and say Derwin James, but extremely versatile, can play free, strong, and the slot. For Washington, of course, I'm very excited for Eric Bieniemy to become their offensive coordinator. They have a good offensive system there, but what I'm looking for most for the Commanders is secondary help. A little bit thin at that position. I know that, what's his name? Benjamin St. Jude. Benjamin St. Jude, very good year. Kendall Fuller went out with injury, but gonna have another guy there. I don't know why on PFF. This would actually gets me mad. Keelan Ringo and Cam Smith are a 3rd-round pick and then a late 2nd-round pick when I have them as both 1st-round picks, by the way. But the consensus cornerback 3, even 2 is Joey Porter Jr., of course. Another big cornerback, 6'2", 198. Another good man coverage cornerback, plays majority at the hip of the receiver, but does not have the top end speed, of course. Profiles more to like an AJ Terrell kind of horn kind of guy, which is what I have. The same thing for Cam Smith. Moving on to the Steelers, I would love for them to get just a phenomenal tackle in Broderick Jones. He a 2-year starter at Georgia, of course. and franchise quarterback Kenny Pickett. You would want to have the most offensive line and weapons around him. Broderick Jones is a very good pick there. Lions are back up, likely going to take a defensive player. And I like Myles Murphy for them, especially because Myles Murphy can play the 3 tech. He can play the 5. He can play as far out as the 7. And they already have good defensive linemen like Aiden Hutchinson, who they picked 2nd overall last year, and then they have James Houston, who was an absolute steal. I think he was a 5th round or 6th round pick last year, and James Houston's best at the 9 tech, like a far outside. Put him there, run a little 3-4, and he'll slide right into probably for the Lions like a 5 tech. And now, moving on to the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are another team that needs secondary help. So I would likely see them go with a guy like Kelee Ringo. I would say Ringo over... I would only say Ringo over Cam Smith because I think that the Bucs already have a Cam Smith within their organization, which is basically Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis already fits that Cam Smith role. And then you're going to have a freak athlete on the outside of him. And then that's going to be a hard secondary to cover. And then they got Antoine Johnson over the top too. So Kelee Ringo adds to a much improved secondary. And then the Seattle Seahawks, best interior offensive lineman available. Probably going to re-sign Geno Smith for, I don't necessarily know how long. Maybe like a 2-3 year. But that's a good, solid offensive guard that's going to be there. And then for the Chargers, I love that I've had this pick in my mind. I think this is arguably a perfect fit for Jackson Smith-Njigba to go to the Chargers. Now, what does JSN do that profiles best for the Chargers? Well, who do the Chargers have on the roster? Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I profile Jackson Smith-Njigba as basically a Keenan Allen type receiver where he's going to run a 4.6, but he's going to get open. He's definitely going to get open. He'll find the spots in the zone. Smart player, only had 1 year of production, of course, 1,600 yards in 2021. Very, but he did play with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and played with Marvin Harrison, played with a lot of good receivers, but he gets open a lot. So, for the Chargers, what is their biggest decline that we saw last year? Well, Keenan Allen couldn't come back from a hamstring injury. Boom, you got Jackson Smith-Njigba, and then all your deep threats, and I think Jackson Smith-Njigba, heavily underrated prospect this year. I think he's getting heavily overlooked. People are calling him a 2nd round pick. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, they're back up on the clock. So we saw them take Anthony Richardson earlier in the 1st round. So what do? You want to give him as much help as possible, and we're going to give him Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Of course, we don't see a ton of Boston College guys, but 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, got that college production. He is 5'10", 172, has a slight frame, but another guy that just gets open. Another guy like that. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings, they need defensive line help. Probably look at, I would love for them to look at edge and defensive tackle, possibly if one of the best guys is available. But now looking at this, you're not going to get any immediate help. So I'm going to look towards secondary picks and go with Cam Smith. They're getting the Brian Flores defense is such a good, it focuses so heavily on cornerbacks, and put Brian Flores with Cam Smith, you're going to get a lockdown guy like Xavier Howard. I like that fit a lot for Minnesota. Now the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think this is another cornerback move, looking more towards like a Carl Phillips. I don't like how they also underrate Carl Phillips heavily. Another guy, highly graded. He had 6 interceptions last year, passer rating of 68.4, of course, out of Utah. Now, it is a slighter frame, but they already have a bigger framed cornerback in Tyson Campbell. Put Carl Phillips next to him, and that's a good fit. Now, if you have seen, I've taken a lot of cornerbacks in the first round. Of course, Witherspoon. We have Gonzalez. You have Joey Porter Jr. going. We have Ringo, Cam Smith, Clark Phillips. Ton of cornerbacks going early in this class, especially in the first round. And I'm probably even going to pick maybe another one or two because this is a very, very good cornerback class. Anyways, moving on to the Giants. They need receiver, and they need either receiver or tight end, whichever one they think is best. And depending on their offseason acquisitions, I think it comes down between Mayer, Kennard, or Nathaniel Dell. Now, some people think that Nathaniel Dell is as far as like a second round pick or as early as early first, of course, multiple years of elite college production out of Houston, or he's like a back half, second half guy where it's like, oh, he's super small, super small, 165, 5'10". And it's like some people have him going late or have him going super early. Now for me, I have him going early. I like Nathaniel Dell, as we've already seen. The numbers, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns. It was another guy that played very well at the Senior Bowl. Overall, good receiver. Does a good route runner, fluid movement too, but very, very small, 165 pounds. Also coming out of Houston, which is a lower Power 5 conference, but I think that people got to stop immediately looking at schools and writing people off. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, I want an interior defensive tackle or an interior presence, and I'm going to go with Sakai Ika. Now, a lot of people, Sakai Ika, a lot of people don't know him, but 300 and almost 60 pounds, 6'4", and he profiles as a very, very good nose tackle. Now, the Cowboys, I think their worst quality is probably against the run. And if you got Micah Parsons there, and you put Ika right next to him, who is getting through that defensive line? Who is getting through that defensive line? That's a scary, scary front. And I like that pick a lot. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills. I think this is almost a perfect fit here. I know everybody loves Bijan. Crazy PFF grade, 95.3. Had 1,500 yards this year, 6.1 yards per carry. Had 18 touchdowns. Had such a phenomenal year, and is one of the best running back prospects we've seen since Saquon Barkley. But the problem is his positional value. Yeah, he's so awesome. He's super awesome. But can you get same or similar production in the second round? And also, you have to pay him higher. What have we seen the last 10 Super Bowls? The highest paid running back was like $1.7 million. There have been no running backs in the last 10 years over $4 million or above, or the running back average, that have won the Super Bowl. So the positional value obviously has to be less. But when we look at the Buffalo Bills, what is the only position that they're really lacking in? And it's running back. And you get a phenomenal running back prospect. So I love that pick for the Buffalo Bills. Bijan, that's one of the it's like the final puzzle piece. I think that's the final puzzle piece for their offense. That'd be sick. Moving on to the Bengals, you need to just have an offensive tackle. You need to have a strong offensive tackle. You need to protect Joe Burrow. And how do you do that? Well, let me show you DeJuan Jones. Yes, he profiles best as a right tackle. And you have Lyle Collins that is getting paid a lot of money. But Lyle Collins sucked last year. And look, DeJuan Jones is 6'8", 350, and has the longest arms that were measured in the Senior Bowl, which were 85 inches, which is around like 7'2". He's got not 7'2", that's like almost 8, or 7, like 8. Humongous wingspan for a huge offensive tackle in DeJuan Jones. Yeah, he's not awesome, he's not super technical, and he's not the most vertical tackle because he's huge. He's 350, 6'8". It's a lot to move. But when he gets moving, nobody's stopping him. Do like DeJuan Jones for the Bengals here. And then you got the Saints. Their biggest need, obviously, is quarterback. they just kind of don't have one. But I'm not going to draft any of those here. And then I'll probably look for developmental edge rushers. And I really like a Nolan Smith here. He's a guy that just unfortunately didn't play a lot last year, was hurt or got an injury after 8 games of the season. But he was playing good. 2 sacks registered. On ESPN, it is 3. But if we look at his 2021 snaps, 21 stats, he played 500 snaps with 7 sacks. And was one of the best edge rushers for Georgia last year when Georgia's defense was crazy. Also was a captain this year. Could have entered the draft last year, but decided to stay, of course, senior. And looking at his stats, 6'3", 235. Definitely a 3-4 outside edge rusher. Nose in the ground, not really nose in the ground, kind of defensive end type. He's a little thinner, but I like him on the edge. But he will have to be developmental. I don't think he'll start right away. But for the Saints, someone's going to have to replace Cam Johnson one day. So, for the Philadelphia Eagles, what did we see them pick earlier? Christian Gonzalez. So now let's move towards the defensive side of the ball. And I like an Andre Carter here as a kind of a late round defensive edge. So when we look at Andre Carter, of course, did not have a super successful year last year. Also is played at Army. And how many Army first-round picks have we seen recently? But in 2021, obviously, he had 15 sacks, was extremely dominant. He's a 6'7", 260-pound guy. And when we look at the Eagles' defensive line schemes, he could definitely slide right in there as their... as one of the next really great defensive players in the making. They're always great at developing those. So I like an Andre Carter fit. Developmental piece for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then with the Chiefs with the last pick in the draft, I really want them to go with just debating whether I want to go with Hyatt or Brown. No, see, the thing with Hyatt, he did win. He won the wide receiver of the year award for college football, of course. But then I like Josh Downs far more as a prospect. I like Josh Downs farther as a prospect, but they're kind of the same player because they already picked a Downs guy. They picked Sky Moore last year, who's probably going to be best in the slot. But Hyatt also is another slot guy. But the reason why I'm going to pick Hyatt is because deep. He's going to be an elite deep threat for Patrick Mahomes, and that's just going to continue to make their vertical threat, and it's going to just make them such a very hard vertical offense to stop. But that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you tune into my next video, which is going to be a Jalen Carter player breakdown. Can't wait to start the player breakdowns in the film stuff and to show my information and my knowledge about these players. But thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.